Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor, and I'm joined today by Hermione Gardner. Hermione Gardner is the no-fluff business and mindset coach behind Sidekick, the go-to growth partner for property management businesses. With 20 plus years in the trenches, she helps property management business owners build wildly successful rent rolls without burning out. And I think that's key. Real talk, proven strategies, and a whole lot of humour, which is what you can expect. Welcome, Hermione.
Oh, pressure's on. I've got to be funny today now.
Yeah, it's like, be funny now. Yeah. Um, I mean, I like to start with getting to know my guests a little bit more. So that's where we're going to start our conversation. And I was just wondering how you came to be where you are today, which is an advocate for property managers and entrepreneurs in the property management industry, a property management business and mindset coach. I mean, I just love the work that you do. It's so
It's very
inspiring.
niche, isn't it? It's quite
Yeah, it is
niche.
very niche, but you're also the co-creator and producer of the BDM Summit as well. So there's a lot of things that you do, but you go really deep into the property management industry. So tell us how you got there.
Whew, great. How far back are we going today? No, well,
All the
thank you
way.
for, yeah, thank you so much for having me on today. It's really funny because when you're saying it and repeating that back to me, like I'm like, it's such a random thing to be a business coach in, but the property management industry is this huge sub industry within the real estate industry. So, for any of your listeners who have rented a property or owned an investment property, you're generally 90% of the time looked after by a property manager. And that's literally, other than my cafe and blockbuster jobs when I was growing up, when I was like 17, I just got into real estate randomly because we were selling my family's house and did a diploma, started working a little admin job in a real estate, and then just over my career, did different roles, worked my way up through the it's a very limited corporate ladder that there is in property management. There's only so far to go, and then over the years, through working with tech and other training providers, I launched my own business, which is Sidekick. And it really probably more started as like training property managers on how to do things better and faster and smarter, and remove a lot of the stress and overwhelm. Like, it is a really like stressful and overwhelming job because you're juggling the owners and the tenants and the trades and the properties and the repairs and everything. And then because I'd then gone through and started my own business, and I was working a lot with businesses on helping them start up and scale, like I really found this niche of new business owners coming through who are opening specialized property management businesses. So typically it used to be more, there's a real estate on the corner, they do sales and PM. And now there's this wave of specialists coming through. And I have really sort of honed in the last couple of years on supporting them in particular, because as we know, growing a business on your own is really isolating and hard. And so we now have not only coaching and resources for them, but we have like a mastermind community of property management focused business owners who are growing their rent rolls. And that's, the very short abbreviated version that we have time for of how I got to where I am.
Yeah, well, I want to find out a little bit more about when you pivoted from being a property manager and being in real estate to thinking, okay, I'm actually going to consult to that industry. What was the moment when you made that decision, and how did you get started?
I'd love to tell you there was this glamorous moment where I was walking down the street and decided I was going to run my own business, but it didn't really happen like that. I was pretty burnt out working in property management, and I was like pretty high up in my career. Like, I was taking on pretty senior roles in really big businesses, and I was burnt out, and I actually ended up at, I think it was about 24, 25, however old I was at the time. I actually just left and I went to Canada for 6 months to do a ski season because I was just so tapped out. And then when I came back from that, I had this hesitation to go back into sort of that more like frontline property management. And I was lucky enough to get a role at the time with another coach consultant in the industry who I learned so much from. And after working with her for a few years, I then wanted to create my own thing, but it wasn't originally Sidekick. I did sort of like a freelance arrangement with a prop tech provider. And so I started kind of working from home, and then I had my babies and I was raising them from home. And then I kind of just created Sidekick from default because I started having more and more people want my services. So it sort of really has not had this clear moment. It's been an evolution. Probably what it was when it started is, completely different to what it is now, which I think is actually probably pretty common in business, I would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it can be, but it also sounds like the business has found its own momentum a little bit too. And it sounds like a lot of it's come to you rather than you having to go out there and, into a blank space and kind of create something. It's kind of been, almost.
It does now.
Yeah.
It does now. I'm at that stage of my career in my business where things are going well. Everyone's like, oh my God, it looks like it's going amazing. And yes, business does naturally come my way now. We have a lot of referral work. But that wasn't what it was from day one. So it's almost like, the 9 years I've had my business, and I've been I've spent a lot of time on, on personal brand throughout that time and reputation. That's kind of grown and evolved. And so this overnight success probably that people see now is like the years and years and years of all of the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, no doubt. It's having your own business is not for the faint-hearted, I don't think. But I love people like you who do have their own businesses, and you get it, and you're supporting other people that have their own businesses too. So there's the insight that you bring across property management, but also running your own business, which is great. Now, I know that you're focused on the property management industry, but the principles and practices for success are transferable, I would think, particularly because you I know that there's a lot of moving parts, but there is with any kind of business. And with property managers, it's all about portfolio growth and really expanding, their, like you call it, their rent roll. I mean, in my world, in the B2B world, that would be called, your account portfolio. But that's essentially, what it is. So if we look first to property managers, what do you know for sure are the keys to being successful?
It's actually funny, what you're talking about, there's being successful as a property manager, I would say, and like how to be an awesome one. And I think there's probably a different side to that around how to be really great at growth in your property management business. Because typically, and this is coming from my own experience, I was a property manager. I wasn't the salesperson or the BDM person who was, going out and getting the business. My forte came from, problem solving and communication and the client management side of things, right? And probably the real transition when I was in one of my roles is I actually started going to like the sales training. I started going to learn the other side of the business, and I was able to then start identifying growth opportunities and growing my own portfolio. Now that's not super common in our industry. Usually the portfolio managers are not the ones doing the growth. There's often a BDM or other marketing strategies in place. So I think it's I don't know that there's a clear definition of what makes, a successful property manager in one or the other. I think it's probably more the skills that are acquired over time. I think that the successful people I work with now who are the property management kind of entrepreneur business owners, the successful ones of those recognize their gaps, which is usually that skill set around selling, and they're actually going and learning new skill sets, right? So like say in our mastermind at the moment, we're talking all about lead gen and marketing and, consultative style of sales, right? Because a lot of them are really great at their property management role, but not great at selling themselves and putting themselves out there, and almost as well really not good at talking themselves up or like explaining to people why they will be the best and ideal property manager for them. So, okay, I don't know if I've gone around the question.
You have.
Does that make sense?
No, you absolutely have. I mean, I want to talk to you a little bit about, my own experience as a landlord. It's interesting because I really appreciate the various focuses that a property manager has to have. You talked about you've got the tenants, you've got the landlord, you've got tradespeople, you've got maintenance, you've got the other tenants, that you've got to kind of work in with you. There's a lot of different stakeholders. But what my own experience has been, and I'd love you to just talk to me about how I guess your focus with your clients. My experience has typically been that the property managers treats the tenant more like a client than they do the landlord. And I think, wow, if you just spent a little bit more time in the engagement and in preempting some of those things and making life easy, I could be bringing, opportunity to you. I'd be referring things to you. I wouldn't want to change every couple of years, who looks after our properties. And I just think, it's almost like you're ghosted until the tenant wants something, and then they're relentless, and it feels like they're kind of bringing you like a cat would bring a mouse onto the front doorstep and then saying, well, what are you going to do about it? What do you sort of focus on with the property management owners that you speak with, and also their team members?
Yeah, so interesting perspective, right? And I love actually hearing the real experiences of what landlords are feeling.
Yeah.
Especially because it does sort of mirror back into what I'm seeing in the day-to-day, because property managers are generally really busy juggling all of those different things, all those things that you said, but also now there's so much legislation and compliance from state to state. And as much as there's some really amazing experienced property managers out there, there's also some junior ones who are still learning and still figuring it out. They're managing hundreds of properties, right? So if you are looking for a property manager, I'd really try and find someone who's experienced. Is going to make a big difference. But I suppose it leads into a lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment is around that value piece that a property manager has to bring, in being like, okay, you need to be able to demonstrate that you are more than just someone who can, receive a repair and call the owner and say, what do I do, right? Like, we need to actually start to become more advisors and, like partners in your property, right? And so we teach a lot in the trainings with the clients we work with at the moment. It's like, how can we actually build more, I suppose, it's like relationship management and advisory level of service into the day-to-day. So like, as an example, I usually say, okay, when was the last time you sat down with your landlord and had a conversation about, hey, what's your goals? How's it all going? What's your plans for the next 12 months? Like, let's see how much you've spent on maintenance. Have you got a budget for the next 12 months? Like, all of these questions that become a more proactive approach to then me being able to service you as a landlord. But the challenge is like that they're typically not having that conversation, except for like at the very, very start. So it's like when they very first sign you up or bring you on as a new client, they promise you the sun, the moon, the stars, and the earth. And then it's sort of, that's either, I suppose, lost at the handover initially, and then you just move into business as usual, which is, you follow up the rent and do the repairs and everything else. And maybe once that tenancy's up, we're renewing it for you. But even then, right, the tenancy comes up for renewal and it's like, oh, hey, do you want the tenant to renew? Do you want to, does the tenant want, and then it's like, that's an awesome opportunity to have a conversation with you and say, hey, we're 10 months in, like, how's it all been going? Like, let's chat about your future plans. And, we're finding now with the clients who actually bring those kind of conversations in and actually, God forbid, pick up the phone and talk to you, they're able to not only build better and stronger relationships, build more trust with you, because then, you're quicker to then be able to approve things because you know that they're meeting your needs and expectations. But then, like, as you said before, they're actually also identifying more opportunities. So they're speaking to someone like you and then sort of being able to go, cool, like, so is this the only property that you've got? Have you got other investment properties, that we need to take into consideration? Would you like to buy more investment properties? Would you like us to tell you when we have, an investment property that might make a great offering for you? Do you have plans to sell in the next 12 to 24 months? Do you want us to get you an updated price on that property so that you've got some information like at your disposal? Like, all of this doesn't sound very complicated, but it's just not built into the business as usual way that we've all kind of been taught to do property management over the years. So I'm definitely really passionate about that at the moment, especially with more like AI and tech coming in, like for us to hold our value and hold our fees, like, and not just be seen as a commodity. Like, we have to find better ways to become more valuable to our clients.
Yeah, geez. I mean, I would,
Preaching
I'm
to the choir
nodding.
by the sounds of it.
Yeah, because I'm nodding madly here as you're saying all of these things, and I just love to be asked some of those questions. I just think, Joe, I wish my property manager was listening to this episode, but wouldn't want her to
Let's
take
send it over to
offense.
them.
Yeah, that's how just
But
subtly.
the challenge, that Ingrid, the challenge might be is like they've either never been taught that this is a option for them, that they
No
could do
doubt.
property management this way. They could be managing way too many properties and they just don't have the time to have practical conversations. They
Yeah.
might work for a business owner where it's just not valued. It's like, hey, we just want to manage as many as we can and, have that asset sitting there
Yeah.
and the income coming in. But I think that's why I really love the clients I'm working with now, because a lot of these property management focused entrepreneurs, these ones going out on their own, like they want to do it different. They want to be that specialist and they want to be known for being that specialist. And like we're saying with me, then they want to be the one that like all the landlords in that area are just, oh, I want to work with this person.
Honestly, it's so frustrating, and I think it's encouraging for me to hear that you're starting to really change the business as usual model. Tell me this though. Tell me what up leveling is required for somebody who's a property manager, and maybe we're answering our own question here. Property manager to then own a successful property management business.
Um, Officially none. But like, yes, technically there's a lot of gaps. Like I said, how we can be a really great property manager but we don't know how to grow. There's also a big skills gap in not knowing how to like run a business and understand numbers and financials and the metrics needed, and understand also then how to be a great leader if they're then going to, bring on team and develop systems and processes and scale that business. So a lot of the startups that come and work with me, where that's what we're helping them to fill. We fill a lot of those gaps. We've sort of got a model where we look at, like the business ownership as one component of it. Then we look at the operations, the people, the process, the systems as another part of it. And then we have the third component, which is the growth. It's so teaching them how to generate more leads and convert more clients and sort of onboard them well into the business. So it's sort of, we've got that, the business ownership, operations and growth are typically those three things that they need the gaps filled on. They're usually, I don't have to spend a lot of time on teaching them how to be a property manager. They've got that covered. It's all of those other components.
And I wonder, if somebody was really doing property management well, the way that you are teaching them to do it, I wonder if they're just through that experience, whether their eyes would be opened to, what might be possible for them as business owners. Because what you're essentially teaching them to do is to think more laterally about the opportunity that they have, and to not be so siloed in this is my remit and I don't go outside of it. You're getting them to think more holistically about other opportunities for the bigger business. So if they work within, a normal real estate agency and they're a component of that real estate agency, thinking about how I can bring opportunity back into the business. How you said before, what are your plans over the next 2 years? Do you plan to sell the property? Would you like it valued? I mean, I don't know if I've ever been asked that by a property manager. Maybe once, maybe once.
But you'll
And
laugh
I've had
because
this,
I go into those businesses and then they're
yeah.
like, I do an analysis and they, for the business, it's like they've got, let's say call it 500 managements, right? And we might have lost 50 of those managements in the last 12 months just because of owners, selling and moving back in. Call it then maybe it's, let's say 30 of those have been sold. Ideally, in an ideal world, like if that agency has sales, obviously, that agency should be selling 90% of those properties, right? Because the relationship's there, you already trust the business, it just makes sense. And usually it's only the small 10% that go to a family friend or local agent, right? But what's happening in a lot of businesses, it's like less than 50% are selling because you're just seeing a great result, someone in your neighborhood, or you're on someone else's database and they're calling you going, hey, have you got a property? Do you want to sell it? And they're the ones offering it to you. And the current agency is missing a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's just money on the table that is there to be taken. Hermione, I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting you when you and Sarah Sincotta asked me to speak at the BDM Summit, but most of my communication up to that point had been with Sarah, and there is something really special about your relationship. What impresses me so much is that while you're both in the industry, you unite with the BDM Summit and support one another with your respective businesses. And when so many people consulting in the same space avoid any form of collaboration for fear of having their IP stolen or used against them, you're both demonstrating what's possible. How did you come to be friends, and how do you navigate collaboration and carving out your own spaces whilst also being each other's cheerleaders?
Yeah, it is a great question, and it's definitely a concept that used to be pretty foreign to me, like especially when I worked in real estate, all the competitors were the enemy. And I've, worked for various people over the years where that's, felt like the case as well. I think when I started my business, I was like collaboration and, openness was a really important part of it. And when I met Sarah, like hers was, hers was very similar, right? So when it was actually, we were friends, like those internet friends first, we connected with people on Facebook for ages. And so we knew of each other. And then it wasn't until we were both going to the same real estate conference and we'd never met in person. And I think either me or one of the others said, hey, I've got a hotel room. Do you want to come and stay? And we literally just ended up staying for the weekend in a hotel together for the first time and just chatted and connected. And I think it was only, 4 or 5 months later, we put on our first event, which was the BDM Summit, and we had, 80 people, because I think we both wanted to, I don't know, share our message, and we were very aligned in what we wanted to share. And then, we're now 3 years in, we're just planning our fourth year next year, and it's become one of the biggest events in our property management space in the industry. And I suppose we've had lots of highs and lows along the way. It's been finding our feet around, who kind of plays what role in that collaboration and partnership. But even outside of the event, we're constantly, sending clients to each other and supporting each other and cheering each other on. And I think that's probably in our industry, it actually has become more common than not now. There's a lot of other amazing coaches and trainers and consultants in our space. And for the majority of them, we all support each other and cheer each other on when we're putting new products and offerings and things out there. So that's most of what I see. I don't know if that's just my filter now. I don't sort of tend to see, the bad stuff that might be out there, but I think it just comes down to finding aligned people that share those values and then, building off that.
I love that. I just think it's incredible and can only lift both of you up. And I think the fact that you're both mums as well. I know Sarah's a newer mum, but I think that there's a real understanding there about what comes first, and then how you create a business around family successfully. And just so inspiring. I really enjoyed watching both of you during that, my experience of it anyway. It was amazing. So Hermione, tell us more about your work, and I'd love to hear about all of the things that you do, as well as a little bit more about Sidekick, because I feel like we've kind of just sort of touched on that, but we haven't really gone into what it is. And I'm also interested in the challenges that you think next year will bring for property managers and landlords, and what your programs are doing to help property managers in particular navigate some of those challenges.
Yeah, it's quite funny. We've actually just mapped out we've just done a planning day and mapped out our 2026, and it's feeling a lot more, I suppose, focused and strategic than it has before. It's constantly, all of us have got to be leveling up. I've had to level up my business as well. I think I spent the last few years just sort of trying to fill all the gaps and fill all the holes and fix and help everybody. We've really sort of dedicated, like the next 12 months will be really focused on a lot of really trying to help like the businesses and the leaders, because we think that we'll still do a lot of the property management training that we've been doing, but working a lot more with the business owners of the smaller businesses and the bigger businesses will help lead from that change, to create change from the top down. I think that there's like, in our industry, there's so much work to be done on the exact topics that we were just talking about. Also, you know, like property management burnout is huge at the moment. Like, you know, putting aside what we were saying before, it is actually really hard and challenging to be a property manager. There's so many demands and expectations, and now, you know, just the nature of how our world is, everyone wants things like instantly and faster. So, you know, it's like an owner might send an email or a tenant might send an email, and then there's no sort of auto response or logging of that. So it's like, then you're calling 5 minutes later to go, hey, did you get my email? And they're going like, oh my gosh, slow down, right? Because I think we're in our industry at this funny kind of tipping point where there's lots of new tech and tools coming in, but it hasn't sped up our job enough to be able to deliver that advisory service or to be able to manage more clients or whatever the outcome would be to grow, whatever that is. So I think the next 12 months, we're really focused on, you know, working with the businesses to help them like optimize how they're doing things, make better use of all of the tech and tools and AI and everything that's coming in. Really give a lot of support to the business owners to be able to lead more sustainable teams and help them not burn out from that top, and make sure they're planning for capacity and not overloading portfolios and all of those lovely things. So that's our kind of like main outcomes, and we're doing that through, you know, in-office coaching consulting. We have online coaching consulting. We have our mastermind program, and then we will have like property management, I suppose, like training offerings throughout the year that we will run. So we're primarily online, but we do still go into offices and do a lot of consulting. I do a lot less of that now, but we've hired another consultant into the business, Carla, who she goes out and does a lot of the in-office consulting. So yeah, we've sort of refined our offering a lot more to try and meet that change that's happening. And we've just got to hold on and hope that we know what we know for now, but something else might come out in, you know, 3 months and completely change things of what we need to be focused on. So we're just trying to stay strategic but adaptable, if that makes sense.
Yes, it certainly does. And that word sustainable teams, that phrase sustainable teams, I should say, I think that's a word that we'll be hearing a lot more of, as, you know, burnout, I think, is going to be a real challenge, not only in property management. I think it's happening everywhere. Yeah, and for all of the same reasons that you've said. I think everyone does expect instant responses. They think that they're the most important person in that other person's life, or they should be, and therefore, you know, that they not only need a fast response, but they need the response that they think that they need as well. So there's an expectation. Yeah.
We're living in like the Uber generation, right? Like I could sit here right now while we're talking. I could go open up my Uber Eats. I could order a salad for lunch, and it would probably be here before the end of this podcast recording with up to the date minute updates on where that is and how far away it is. Like we're living now in that type of society. Yeah. And I think that it gives us just that elevated standard of what we expect, even in these other industries that aren't built for that, right? Like our property management's not built for that Uber style of communication yet. Like it might be, like there's a lot of incredible changes I'm seeing in a lot of the softwares that the PMs are using, which will help that, but we're not quite there yet. But then they're like, oh my gosh, why is all the expectations so high? Well, you know, because that's just the norm of how fast the pace of life is enhancing in every other area.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that same generation that, I love how you said that. I hadn't heard the term Uber generation, but it's so true. And that says a lot about how it has, you know, raised the bar around our expectations about timing and responsiveness. And when we can get something and, you know, tracking it all. At the same time, I'm looking at that same generation going, but I don't see you doing that. Like as consumers, I think that they have those expectations, but as deliverers of service, I'm not sort of seeing them with the same level of urgency necessarily.
No, but also as humans, we don't really have the capacity to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
if we layered that back into, like call it like in the property management space, right? Like there's some cool tools and tech now that help, say, like with maintenance and stuff, right? But even still, it's like, let's say, you approve the repair verbally. I need to go to my system. I need to go, owner has approved. I need to generate the work order. The work order gets sent out to the trade. That might take them a day to read the work order. Then they go and they call the tenant and they, oh, yep, I'll come tomorrow. Come at, between 12 and 4. Their tenant's waiting at home. They've got the shits. Then they don't even come. Like it's so like just it's normal. But like then when you compare that to like the other experiences we're having, a property manager would literally need to have no other jobs and literally be like on the phone going, yep, I've just checked with the trade. They're going to be there in 5 minutes. Yep, I've just checked the trade has come. Like that. They have to have a person that is able to do that, and we don't have the capacity to do that because I've got another 100 properties and clients that I have to look after as well, and I'm on to the next thing once I've sent that work order. So I think until the tech catches up and it can, they provide up to the minute arrival times of where that trade is, it's going to feel slower, and it's unfortunate that then, for their clients, the tenants and the owners, then there's a frustration there because they're not able to get that level of service from even a great property manager.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Fantastic. Well, we're going to include in the show notes all of the links to your website, your programs, etc. Is there anything else that you'd like the audience to know or to be able to go to that's coming up?
I mean, if you're in the real estate space, if you're in Australia, there's a property management event speaking on the 27th in Sydney, the PMX conference. I'll be talking for that one around, it's called a lead generation playbook. So it's how to systemize growth in your business effectively, because that's another big gap I don't see is, a gap I see is that with property management businesses systemize everything around the property management side of things, but then growth is just this sporadic, we've just got to see if we can get some new leads tomorrow or see if we can sign up some new clients. So I'm doing that session there, and I'll be doing that at a few other conferences throughout 2026. Nice. If you're in New Zealand, I'll be doing that at the REI NZ conference. So there's a few events that I'll be speaking at coming up. And then, of course, Sarah and I will be doing our BDM Summit again next year, most likely in July. So you'll have to watch out for that soon. And again, that's another event just fully focused on the growth of the rent roll.
Amazing. Absolutely outstanding. Hermione, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. And all I can say is continue the success. It's amazing. And I love watching and cheering you on.
Oh, thanks for listening to my story and sharing it with your audience. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for listening.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.